This is the Raw Life Health Show. Raw Life. Bright. Hello everybody, it's Paul Nison with the Raw Life Health Show, and I am so excited about my today's guest. This is Carissa Kranz, and she is an amazing woman and superwoman. I have been promoting veganism, and I've been telling people from every aspect of my life, for the environment, for compassion for animals, for health. Veganism is the way to go. It's plan A of God, and it's everything. And I've met many people over the years that say their struggle with veganism and so on. Well, Carissa has been a vegan for a very long time. As a matter of fact, her whole life. And she's never, ever had anything to do with animals in her life in terms of eating them and in her body, and it's amazing. So say hello to the audience and tell everybody your age. Never ask a woman your age, but in this case, she should be proud of it because never vegan her whole life. It's just so amazing. So tell everybody a little about your like, why vegan? How old are you, first of all?
I'm 35.
35.
And I was vegan from birth.
Vegan from birth. The only non-vegan thing she's ever had, she said, was breast milk.
Yeah, my mom's milk.
Her mom, who was a vegetarian, by the way.
Not cow's milk.
Yes.
My mom's milk.
Yes.
The milk we're supposed to have. Yep, 35, vegan from birth. When vegan wasn't so cool back then. And my mom became vegan before she became pregnant with me. So I even had a vegan pregnancy. I was from conception vegan.
Wow. And that's just so amazing. And do you talk about this a lot, or does it come up a lot in discussion, other than your business life, which we'll talk about, but in your personal life, does it come up a lot, or do you just not talk about diet, really?
It doesn't really come up a lot because I grew up being such an oddball that I think I was more of a closet case vegan because I just wanted people to leave me alone to eat my broccoli and sprouts and be, I just didn't want to, people are mean. People make fun of the diet. Not anymore. Now it's cool. Now it's hip. Now it's catching on. It's the way to be. But when I was born and as I grew up, it was not the way to be. And the food pyramid was all about meat and dairy, and you need to have X amount of meat and X amount of dairy, and this is what the doctors recommended, and I was going to be deficient, and I was going to have all these health issues, and that was kind of what was indoctrinated in us. So I stayed vegan because morally and ethically I could never imagine eating an animal. So for me, when I made the moral decision, I really didn't want anyone to tell me. I'm stubborn. I'm a lawyer, right? So I didn't want anyone to tell me I had to do it any other way. So I decided to keep it my way, but not really talk about it. I just did it my way. But you can see that there's a change in the culture because when I grew up, I would go out to dinner with people and everyone around me would eat meat and they would make, poke at me and ask me 10,000 questions about why I'm vegan or why I'm not eating meat. And I learned to tune out what they were eating so I could just enjoy my food. Now when I go out to eat, people know I'm vegan and you see them, they actually ask permission, like, do you mind if I eat meat? Which is a totally different mindset than when I grew up where I was grilled on why I'm not eating meat. Now it's like, do you mind? And you even have some people who are conscious and considerate enough to not even order meat in front of me because they feel self-conscious. So that's a sign of the times.
Sure. Now, growing up as a young child, did you ever feel deprived that, like, all the other kids were eating ice cream at a birthday party or something, and you weren't? Did it ever?
No, because I grew up. Now all these products, alternatives are well known, and they're in the grocery store. But those things were around back then too. Like I remember eating rice stream ice cream, and the tofutti bites. I mean, those things were available, so I never felt deprived. I always had access to it. Yeah, no. I think that's the problem. People think veganism is a sacrifice. People think it's extreme. People think, but it's not. And I think that's what's also changing with mindsets and cultures is people are realizing that it's not a sacrifice and there's delicious opportunities out here. And that's why Beyond Meat and all these meat alternatives are doing so well on Wall Street because it's such a phenomenon to normal mainstream people that there are these options that exist that are going into McDonald's and KFC and Burger King, and it's not a sacrifice. It's just about access.
Sure. And I know you said you have such a compassion for animals, but when you first got into this, was it more of your mother's upbringing, her being a vegetarian, that just this is the way you grew up, or did you just like fall in love with animals when you were younger that you just couldn't imagine eating them?
Well, my mom raised me vegan from birth, but my parents divorced and separated when I was 4 and a half. So, I mean, I breastfed for a while, so I was vegan. And then when my parents divorced, I was not, food was kind of still new to me. I would go to my dad's house, and my mom said to me, your dad's going to try to feed you meat because that's what he thinks you need is protein and calcium, so you have strong bones. But, you do what you want, but this is what it is. And I remember very clearly her saying a chicken's a chicken, and, a beef is this cow, and bacon is this pig. And I was, I made a connection at a really young age, and I consciously made a moral decision. And for me, I defaulted into veganism by birth, but it was a conscious decision when I was about 5 years old that this was my way of life, and there was no other way for me.
Sure. And now as you're older and you have money to buy your own food and make your own choices, you have a great foundation, but what's the most important part of it? Is it for health reasons? Is it environmental? Is it compassion for the animals? Or is it a combination of all three?
I think it's all important. I think the environment's important. I think your health is important. But for me, it's compassion for other beings. And I think it's all related anyway. But I can't stand suffering. So I can never contribute to what I feel like is an animal holocaust, frankly. And I think it's just a benefit that way of life is better for the environment, and it's just a nice side effect that way of life means I have a better health. I have good health, and I think that those are just side effects. They're positive, unintended consequences of these decisions. To just care about other beings.
Yeah, there's so many documentaries coming out now exposing the truth. For me, like one of the best documentaries out is Dominion. And what goes through your mind just growing up a vegan and seeing a movie like that?
Yeah, I actually only recently started seeing those movies only because I felt like I had an obligation to educate myself. I think I just felt like I had a responsibility, especially with the business I'm in now, to see that. But those kinds of movies really upset me, and I think that they're important for some people because they need to see it to really change. I don't feel like I need to see it to change, but I need to see it to activate that activism within me to not be a closet vegan anymore, but to speak out about it. Because it's important.
Sure. In one of my recent videos, I actually said something that was a controversial statement, but I think you would understand this more, but I want to hear what your opinion is. I said, and the title was, if you eat animals, you can't love your house pets, or something to that effect. How could you have a dog and eat animals? Like, it's not, you don't love your dog if you're eating animals, or something to that effect. Like, I don't get how people can have a dog and then still eat animals. Or people can have a cat and love their cat, but eat a cow. I don't get it. And people were like saying there was a disconnect for people, but it's all the same. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, yeah. I think we're all connected. It's one collective consciousness. I think that there's no difference between a cow, a pig, a dog, a cat, a human, black, white, Indian, gray, doesn't matter. I think it's really all one and the same. I think that people disconnect because it's convenient, and that if this is how they're raised, so they want to justify it, and if they can find a justification and hold on to it, they will. It's easy for them to block it out, especially when they were raised that way, and it's just indoctrinated into them that this is food, not a friend, and it's indoctrinated into them that a dog is a pet, which is therefore a family member. people aren't really visiting farm sanctuaries and slaughterhouses. People are just living within the culture and sphere that they were raised in, and sometimes I think actually more often than not, if people were exposed to realities, they would change. I think that there are people out there that will change. Those, those that like to go hunt for sport. Those people aren't going to have the same knee-jerk reaction. But I think more often than not, most people that eat meat could not go and kill it themselves. It's just made easy for them to get it. And unfortunately, the meat industry now is called factory farming for a reason. It's factory farming, factory slaughterhouses, and it is now an industry based on money and greed that we are feeding into, literally feeding, by feeding our dollars into it. And it's, it's not only are we killing the animals, we're killing ourselves by feeding this industry, which is not healthy for the planet either. It's just a bad cyclical effect.
Sure. Now, I want to talk a little bit towards the end here about what you're doing this on a professional level to get this message out. But before we do that, the million-dollar question I know people are asking, you're 35 years old, you've been a vegan your whole life. Tell us about your health, supplement-wise. This is amazing, folks. This is amazing because there's a lot of people out there that say things, and the proof is the proof, right? So I asked, how many supplements do you take, or what type of supplements? And tell everybody what you told me.
I don't take any supplements. I've never taken any vitamins or supplements. I work more than anyone I know. My hours are crazy, and I was a professional ballet dancer too. I never broke a bone in my body, so the documentary Game Changers that came out, I think, really does speak volumes to the truth if you've seen it, because in no way have I suffered mentally or physically based on a vegan diet. I went to Berkeley Law School. I got a master's in journalism at Northwestern. I was editor of Law Review. I got my bar license in New York, Florida, and DC. I danced ballet professionally. I still do ballet. I've never broken a bone in my body. And no, I don't take any vitamins or supplements. I'm fine.
And the important thing is, I asked, do you check your blood work regularly?
Yeah.
Because that would be the next obvious question. And how often do you check your blood work?
At least once a year.
Once a year.
At least.
And everything's in range.
Everything's perfect.
Perfect. Perfect. This is not an exception. This is the reality of when you eat a healthy diet. You don't need to just...
You don't need to ingest the hormones of those animals. You don't need to ingest the fear. You don't need to ingest the suffering. I mean, so much of who we are in this world is not just what we eat. It's what we think. It's what we say. It's what we drink. It's what we eat. That's like... In the end, we're water, we're matter, right? So what we eat matters too, and you are what you eat is a real saying. It's real. So when you eat something that's suffered and that is grown in poor conditions and shot up with hormones, how can that be good for you? And frankly, we're just eating this. When we eat plants, what do you think cows eat? Plants. Like all these animals that we're killing and eating, they're vegans. They're vegans. I mean, because if a baby cow has its mother's milk, they're still vegan because that's its mother's milk.
Sure, sure. And me, I'm big into supplements because I've done so much damage to my body not being a vegetarian growing up that I have to still recover from that. It's the reason why I got sick and everything else. But when you start out the right way, it's going to make a big difference, and it is a game changer. So tell us, what is your diet like? Give us your average diet, because I know you're very busy, you travel a lot, and you're always out of the house. So what is your diet like?
You know, I get that question a lot. I used to get that question a lot growing up too. Like, people were like, well, what do you eat if you don't eat meat? I mean, as if I don't have options. Maybe it's because I was raised this way that I don't feel like it's even, confusing to me in any way. But I guess I'm on the go a lot. I mean, I eat nuts, I eat salads, I eat veggie burgers, I just had a vegan pizza here. That's another thing. Like, people would look at me as I did professional ballet, and, I have people are like, oh, you're in such great shape. What's your diet? What do you do? What's your secret? Like, is it the South Beach diet? Is it the Atkins diet? Now it's the Keto's diet? No, it's no diet. It's just a way of life. It's veganism. It's making a choice to live a certain way, and then it's not a diet. It's a way of life. And there's so many options, whether it's fruits, vegetables. I mean, and if you eat meat and you are craving a certain flavor, now that flavor and that texture can be found at your nearest supermarket. It's just easy now.
Sure. Now, getting away from the diet for a moment, how far do you take veganism? Here we are sitting on leather couches.
I don't know if this is real leather.
An example, if this was, would you sit here? Like, how far do you take it from a non-diet standpoint? Because some people will say, go.
I would still sit here. Would I buy a leather couch? No.
Okay.
But I would still sit here. I think it's important as a vegan to exist in a society that needs to be inspired to change. I think it's actually doing more harm than good to isolate ourselves and to refuse to coexist in a world that we're all existing in together. I think it's very important that we can exist, but that when it comes to our own decisions, our own purchasing habits, that we can be conscious about it. So, if I'm gonna go buy a couch, I don't want a leather couch, and I don't want one filled with down feathers, because I think that's mean and cruel. But if I'm at a friend's house and they're inviting me over and they have down pillows on a leather couch, I'm going to sit there and have a conversation with them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Tell them how bad it is now.
No, I think I would start with another. Maybe you kind of. It's a process.
I often tell people. They say, I say, how many people are vegetarians? And everyone might raise their hand. I say, how many people are vegans? How many people know what a vegan is? A vegan is somebody that doesn't eat meat or anything that eat animals or anything that comes from an animal. We don't talk to anyone who does. No, just kidding. Everyone can always get a laugh, but no, yeah.
But that's actually a good point, because the reality is vegan is not defined, right? There's no definition of what vegan is, and everybody defines it differently. Everybody draws the line in a different way. Some people draw it on what they eat. Some people draw it on what they eat where. Other people, it's just there's like a huge range on what it means, and even a huge range on what it means in the products we eat that we think are vegan, that are labeled vegan, that might not be vegan for a vegan.
Which is interesting, because we're going to talk about a book you have coming out about vegan law. But speaking of this, what is truly vegan or not, and what's to define, even the hidden things that are in things we don't know. So let's say I'm trying to be a vegan, or somebody's trying to be a vegan. How do we really know? I mean, you can't rely on a waiter in certain restaurants. They don't even know sometimes. But, how do we really know what ingredients are in certain products or not? And wouldn't it be great if something like that's labeled organic, we know it's truly organic because the label is a good, reputable company that says this is California certified organic. What if something was certified vegan, right? Well, guess what? Tell everybody about your passion and what you're doing.
So I'm a lawyer. I have my own law firm. And I started a company called Be Veg International, and we do vegan certification worldwide. We have 2 global trademarks, and we're represented in more than 70 countries right now. And basically, as a law firm, we are the only law firm issued vegan symbol that can go on products, on restaurant doors, on beverages, on furniture, on couches, you name it, to certify that something has been vetted and is vegan per a law firm defined vegan standard, which we are trying to make a legally defined vegan globally binding standard. That's the goal. Right now, we certify vegan. Products apply to us all the time that have vegan claims on their packaging, and they do not pass the vegan certification process because there is an ingredient in there that either has a sugar component, which is made out of bone char, which they often call natural charcoal, but the ingredient would just say sugar, right? It would be our firm that would then trace the supplier of the sugar to make sure that that sugar supplier is vegan. There's been other times where there was another company that applied to us, and they used a wafer, and they have vegan on their packaging, and the wafer had linolene oil from sheep, and they were unwilling to change the wafer. So because of that, they're not really vegan, but they still legally can claim they're vegan.
Legally they can.
Legally they are, right? Because legally, who's holding these claims accountable? Legally, no one can get in trouble for saying that they're vegan. So that's why Be Veg and we are here, because we want to give the consumer confidence in the vegan claims and be the trusted symbol that when you see the trademark, you know that claim has been not only vetted to be consistent with a vegan standard that we have defined, but that it's actually been researched and that our standards require more disclosures and transparency than the law currently requires, because the laws globally are all deficient in every jurisdiction. This is not a United States problem. This is an everywhere problem. Right now, you don't have to disclose ingredients that have less than 0.5 grams of something per serving. It's considered an insignificant ingredient. So that really adds up, right?
Sure,
per serving. So
sure.
if something's like 0.45 grams of sugar per serving, you're allowed to round down and say that product's sugar-free. But actually, 0.4 grams of something per serving in an entire box of something is actually a lot of sugar, right? Another thing that the law doesn't require you to disclose is incidental ingredients. So what are incidental ingredients? Incidental ingredients are ingredients that can end up in the final product based on the manufacturing process of the product. So, for example, we certify wines, beers, and liqueurs. We have a special trademark for beverages, just like we have another trademark for everything else. A lot of beverages are filtered and clarified through animal parts. Whether it's a juice, it doesn't have to be a wine, beer, or liqueur. It could be a juice, it could be a soda, it could be a whole host of things. It could even be a sparkling water. And the reality is when you use those animal products to clarify and filter it, those byproducts can end up in the final product. But marketing, they can say it's vegan, but if you see the Bev Veg vegan symbol, you know that we have checked into and looked into and taken it a step further to ensure and to require disclosures and affidavits, and we literally make it a legal process to make sure that they are not using those processes, which is important. Now, some people might say,
so important.
Some people might say, "Oh, well, that's extreme. Like, how much ingredient can really be, in a final product that's incidental or insignificant?" Sometimes incidental ingredients can also be based on manufacturing facilities with cross-contamination. And it's important because it's not only being extreme, like people would say, it's about honesty. It's about whether you're vegan or not, wanting access to honest information. I think everyone is label conscious when they go grocery shopping, whether they're vegan or not. And the statistics show that like 80% of those that'll eat at a vegan restaurant, or 80% of those who'll buy a plant-based product, aren't vegan. But when they see that option, they will choose the healthier option because they feel better about their purchasing decision. And I think it's important also because as we make these conscious choices and we certify companies vegan, we are helping, in a way, counsel the companies to actually be vegan. Because many times they will apply to us and they're not vegan, but we'll help them switch out an ingredient and then they can pass. And because we don't want to penalize them. Like, our goal is helping them and helping give access. So when they switch out an ingredient, it affects the supply chain, because then that ingredient that wasn't vegan just lost a major account that was buying their product for sale. So, and they got substituted with another vegan product. So now that non-vegan product is reconsidering their non-vegan habits and changing so they can market their source ingredient to other parent ingredient products to market vegan, which is happening. It's happening. We have people fail who have reapplied a year later to pass because they switched out a source ingredient. So it does make change. It raises consciousness to have the right label, and it inspires change among the entire assembly line. It's a domino effect.
For me, this is so important and so amazing, because for me, somebody who got into the vegan diet from a health standpoint, and now do it even more for a compassion standpoint for the animals, I want to make sure when I'm eating something, I want extreme. I don't want anything to do with animals. One of the reasons why I'm a raw foodist is because I know fruits and vegetables are pretty much not having animal products in it. But when I'm drinking something, if I go to the store and get a drink, I want to know that there's no animal products in it. I go to sometimes vegetarian restaurants and they're serving beer, and beer actually it's not always vegan. And people don't know things like this. And your company,
beer can have fish bladder.
Yeah, and many times does. And unless you do the research, you're not going to know these things. And it does make a big difference. And so I'm so pleased that you're doing this. Is there a website people can go to learn more about this organization?
Beveg.com.
Beveg.com.
Mm-hmm. And that's our Instagram handle and everything.
Beveg.com.
Actually, the Instagram is bevveg with 2 V's, BEVVEJ. So our social media's got the bevveg, double V, but then our website is the beveg.com.
Okay, and I'll put all of those below the video. Mm-hmm. So what's your message out there before we go? As somebody who's been eating a vegan diet your whole life, you have this passion. What's your message to vegans and non-vegans alike? What would be your message out there for them?
This is just the way to be. I think non-vegans, it's a process, and to be open to the process and start learning and understanding what you're actually eating and ingesting and contributing to this world. And for vegans, I think it's important to continue the process of extending the veganism one step further. So yes, like we discussed, it doesn't have to just be food. It could be not having leather seats in your car. It could be not buying leather purses. There's always more you can do. I think one of the most important things, though, is coming from someone that, I was raised vegan in a time where I was judged, and it made me very uncomfortable. I think it's important for vegans to not make others feel judged for not being vegan, because that will have the reverse effect of what they actually want to accomplish. Because no one wants to feel judged, right? So even if someone's not vegan and they're open to it, they're not going to be open to it if they become defensive. They're only going to be open to it if they feel like inspired to be like that person or to learn more, because it seems like a great idea. It's kind of like you have to make it their idea. So I just think for everyone, though, everyone should really just think about the environment, others, and karmic consequences and health consequences and planetary consequences, and just see the big picture beyond, that delicious meal that you think, you want to eat. Think about the life behind that meal and what it went through for you to have that one passing moment that you're not going to remember.
Sure. How diligent are you about the food you eat and the products you buy? Do you really research it deeply, or do you take people's word for it? So if you're at a restaurant and they say, well, this is a vegan meal, how would you feel if you were eating that and you found out, well, that's really not vegan? And you're like, does that happen sometimes? Even when I'm out, I've heard stories of that happening. The waitress will say, oh, that's vegan, and you're eating it, and then somebody will say, well, that really wasn't vegan. How passionate are you about making sure every ingredient and you buy and every product you have is vegan, or do you just...
I think you do the best that you can within the world you exist in. It's almost impossible to know for sure unless there's the BevVeg vegan symbol on it, right? Because you don't know. But I'm certainly someone that I go to a Thai restaurant and I order the vegan tofu curry with no fish sauce, no oyster sauce, and then I'll have the soup and I'll say no chicken stock, no oyster stock, no cheese, no this, no that. But again, you're not in the kitchen watching every source ingredient going into it and then looking at the supplier of that ingredient and making sure. So, I think the key is to do the best you can that's as practicable as possible in the world we live in. And just by doing that, you raise awareness. When I was younger, my dad was not vegan. My parents got divorced when I was young. And when we go out to restaurants, I remember, it wasn't normal to be vegan 35 years ago. We go out to restaurants and my dad would, order what he would order. And then I would get to the menu and I would ask the waiter a ton of questions. And my dad would look at me like I was impossible, like I was never going to, be able to exist in this world because I was so impossible in ordering. And it was kind of embarrassing back then, frankly. But now, I actually get a kick out of it, because if I'm not at a vegan restaurant and they don't know the question, rather than feel like, oh, I'm making, a scene by making them ask, I actually think it's a good thing, because by them having to go ask and go in the kitchen, they're raising awareness, and then they're all trying to figure out the answer, which means they now know there's a demand, and demand is what makes change.
Anything you want to say about vegan makeup real quick?
We are trying to certify more vegan makeup. I probably don't want to talk about it too soon because it's too soon to talk about, but we are in conversations with a major worldwide company beverages that is could be huge for vegan makeup and certification. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very important. I think vegan makeup's important. Everything, it's everything, every consumable product. And every dollar we spend is a dollar spent that has consequences in the world we want to live in, right? So, like, I know when we were having dinner, I was eating my vegan pizza. I've had my own business for 10 years almost now, and I'm only now saying, you know what? I'm going to hire vegans. Why? Because if I'm going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on payroll, why and work so hard to have a vegan company and to be vegan and to talk veganism, why am I going to spend my hard-earned dollars on people that are then going to go to McDonald's and raise their kids eating meat, which is in total conflict with what I'm trying to do? So I was raised vegan. I want to have a vegan business. And that means I want vegan passion as part of the business. And I want my dollars and all the income that comes to the business to go to have integrity. I think a vegan vegan label, vegan trademark is about integrity. It's about an integrity in a vegan claim. I think it's also about integrity in a company and integrity in all of the decisions that you're making, that you are truly following through on everything you're saying.
Absolutely. Sometimes I go to a restaurant and I ask the waitress if they're vegans. If I go to a vegan restaurant and they say, oh no. And on one side, okay, they're exposed to veganism and maybe they'll change, but it's like, there's a lot of people, there's vegans looking for jobs. I want a vegan serve me at a vegan restaurant, but it's very interesting. It's very interesting. But thank you so much. It's so great. So we're going to have Carissa's mother here, and she's going to talk a little about just raising her, and thank you. Okay, everybody, here we are with Carissa's mother. This is Carla, and Carla has been a vegetarian her whole life, right?
Yes.
And she's also 35 now. But it's just amazing how somebody could do this for so long. So what was your decision personally to be a vegetarian your whole life?
I was born into it as well. My mother was a vegetarian.
Wow.
And her father was a vegetarian. She was raised as a vegetarian.
So her grandmother was a vegetarian also?
Her grandmother was not.
Okay.
No.
So you're second generation, and Carissa's third generation.
Yes.
Amazing, amazing. And then you went vegan when you got pregnant?
It was before I got pregnant.
Okay, so how many years now have you been vegan?
Oh, gosh. Close to 40 years.
40 years.
I gave away my age. I was only vegetarian for a couple of years before.
Okay. And how's your health?
Oh, it's fantastic.
How's your blood work?
Fantastic.
What more do we need, folks? This is it. If you do this the right way, it works. And I always say there's a right way and a wrong way. We're not talking about vegan junk food here. We're talking about eating healthy. And so what's your passion? What made you, besides being raised into it, do you do it for compassion reasons for the animals? Do you do it for environmental reasons? Or do you do it for health, or a combination of all three?
It's a combination of all three. Originally, it was, my mother was very much into the health aspects, but she also was very much into the passion of the ethics and morals of animals. The environmental reasons have become more recent, as far as I know, for people becoming vegan for that reason. I was not aware of all of the environmental reasons to be vegan or vegetarian during my young life. So, and I did have a choice. My siblings did not stay vegetarian. But I made the conscious choice of staying a vegetarian and then changing into a vegan.
Now, as Carissa said, you were married and your husband was not a vegetarian.
Correct.
So you being a vegetarian, going into that marriage, how much did that play into the decision of, okay, this is one of the sacrifices I'll make?
Well, my whole life I was practically the only vegetarian I knew. So it was something that I became used to being around people who were not vegetarians. And as Carissa was saying, I was probably even more so a closet vegetarian during my life because it was so unusual, and I was, people would ask me questions, they would bully me, they'd humiliate me. Growing up, I had parents that would take me aside and tell me I was going to die if I didn't eat meat. It was very unacceptable to be vegetarian. So I really didn't talk about it much. I didn't really have a circle of friends who were vegetarian. I was in a profession that I was a professional ballerina, and in that profession, my peers, their interests were in their profession and being better dancers, and I don't know that I knew anyone that was concerned with health or with vegetarianism. I was really a lone soldier my whole life. So to marry someone who was not a vegetarian was not unusual.
Okay. Okay, and how was it coexisting over the years once you made that decision? Like, what did you make 2 meals every day, or like how?
Well, fortunately he liked to eat out most of the time. We
Okay.
rarely ate home, but sometimes we did, and I did sometimes cook like chicken for him, and I hated it. And now that I look back, I don't know how I ever did that, but I did.
And raising your child, Carissa here, was it a decision you made, or was it her decision? When she was younger, it must have been your decision. Did you discuss with him and say?
It was her decision.
When you were a little baby, though, it was your decision. Like, did you tell him, look, this baby's going to be a vegan baby? Or?
No, we didn't really discuss it.
But you made the food.
Yes, I mean, I only gave her vegetarian foods.
And he didn't just get involved with that. He didn't try to give it.
No, he didn't seem to mind it until after we got divorced.
Okay.
He didn't seem to have a problem with it. And I think maybe one of the problems that he had after we got divorced was that he was having a difficult time finding restaurants to go to that she could eat what she wanted to eat. He wanted to take her to McDonald's like all dads did. That sort of thing.
Not this dad.
No. but at that time, that seemed to be the
I
thing.
understand. I want to thank you so much because to keep this going in your family line of your mom and you and your daughter, it's just a wonderful thing, and I just wish there was more.
I'm a 4th generation.
Yes,
Fourth generation.
Fourth generation.
4th generation.
And my mother and her father would be so proud because they were so passionate about this lifestyle.
Wow, it's just, it's so great, and you must be so proud of
I'm very proud of her.
all the animals she saved by not sacrificing through eating.
Absolutely.
That is just so wonderful. And is there anything you want to share with people out there that, look, whether you're a vegan or vegetarian your whole life or you're just getting into this, what message do you have for people out there about this?
Well, it's a wonderful lifestyle. It's ethical. It's healthy. And the more people that become vegetarians and vegans, the more animal lives will be saved. And I think the more awareness just for compassion for the world, for all the beings in the world and the world itself.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I just want to let everybody know there's not necessarily exceptions, but people can be healthy and not be a vegan. People can be healthy and not be perfect in what they're doing. But there's more to it than that. There's environmental issues, and think about the animal. And you have to understand the animal has feelings, and it's some people love their cats and they love their dogs, but all animals have those same feelings. And when I see things like calves being ripped away from their mothers right after being born, and see the animals literally with tears in their eyes, we have to understand this. There's a consequence for things like this, and we need to have all these things in consideration when we make the choices we make and do the things we do. And in today's time, when there's so many different options we have out there to be a vegan, and then I tell people you can eat the same exact way you eat today without changing a thing in preparing the food or anything, and just get a vegan alternative. It's so simple today. There's a vegan alternative for everything out there today. it doesn't have to be complicated to figure out. You can eat the same way and just change these options. So with the help of Be Veg, this company, we can know what the items are to get. And with just the determination of people like yourself to just keep this going on your family line, I think we can all do this. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everybody, put your comments and questions below the video, and make sure you get those books when they come out that Carissa was mentioning. I'll put those links below the video as well. Well, when we started this interview, everybody, I said Superwoman, and now you know why, and I'm sure you agree. So besides the Be Veg website, is there any other contact information you want to give out, or any other passionate thing that you want to talk about that you have a passion for?
Well, I have my vegan law book coming out this year.
Okay, tell me about your vegan law book.
So we have a book that's being published in this year, 2020. It's called Vegan Law, Know Your Rights, and it's with Vegan Publishing House. And it's one chapter is vegan labor law and the need for certification. The rest of the book really goes into some interesting legal aspects about veganism that have yet to be defined, that need to be defined, and that will be defined in the future. Subjects such as vegan family law. What happens when one parent is vegan and one parent's not, and they get divorced? Who determines the nutrition of the child? Vegan immunizations, vegan patient rights, the right for vegan food to be served at places of public accommodation like prisons, schools, which, in my opinion, it's almost like the Americans with Disabilities Act, right? It's necessary to accommodate those with disabilities because it's a protected class. Veganism right now is not a protected class. We have zero constitutional rights. The goal of the book really is to draw the line and explain why veganism really does need to be a protected class. Like, here's another example. You go to Burger King right now and you order the Impossible Burger and they give you meat, right? If you're a vegan, you right now have zero constitutional protection or any legal right for damages, because what's the damage unless you got deathly ill? You know what, you got your feelings hurt. It's kind of made fun of. But if you ate a hamburger, but thinking it was the Impossible Burger or Beyond Burger or Veggie Burger, and you were Hindu and Indian, then you have strict scrutiny, you're a constitutional class, and you're entitled to all sorts of damages because you're a protected class. But vegans are not a protected class. So the book also addresses issues about, well, what's the difference between, religion, race, sexual orientation, gender, disability. I mean, throughout the years, the American Civil Rights Act has expanded, right? I mean, we've expanded to gender rights, gender equality, gay equality, disability equality, and I think it's time to expand the Constitution more to protect the rights of not wanting to hurt others.
So is the goal to get this book in lawmakers' hands?
Yeah, the goal is the book to. So the title is Vegan Law, Know Your Rights, because people need to know their rights.
But are there rights? You say there's no law.
Well, what were the rights during the Civil Rights Movement? There were no rights. But if people look at the Constitution and the intended law, absolutely there are rights. Human law is an intended version of these higher laws, right? There are these laws that our Enlightenment thinkers wrote down and transcribed for us to be as a guide. And they say that the Constitution is a living, breathing document because it is supposed to evolve. Well, it is time that the document evolves to encompass the vegan rights movement and the animal rights movement.
Sure, but you being a lawyer, so if I say, I don't want my kids raised vegan, and now I'm divorced, and I don't want my ex-spouse to feed him anything but vegan food, if I come to you as a lawyer, can you say, well, we got a case, well, we can present to the judge?
Right now, so there will never be a clear defined case until there's a case that then has a determination that then gets appealed, that then travels up to the Supreme Court, that has an ultimate determination which will then define the law. So right now, if a vegan is served a hamburger at Burger King thinking it's not a hamburger, they have a case. They may not have a clear case based on what damages are going to be, but they absolutely have a case to change the law. Just like you know, when you look at Prop 8 I worked at the California Supreme Court when the whole, you know, Prop 8 came down and gay rights and gay marriage and all that. And, you know, no one could change the law about gay rights until there was a case, because you have to have standing. So the way to change the law and define a law for a vegan is actually for a vegan to be injured. And even though the law won't define it as an injury, they need to be injured. They need to have a lawyer that's going to see them as injured, and then they're going to have to litigate that case. They're going to have to get a decision, and that
decision is going to make the law or base the law.
That decision will either, so if the decision goes in favor of the vegan, then it's probably not going to be appealed, but that'll be a holding decision that will then persuade another jurisdiction that has a case like that, and then another jurisdiction, and then that becomes controlling law.
Sure.
And then once it's controlling law, that's when it can travel up to the Supreme Court and get appealed, overturned, and then
once it gets there, it becomes the law or not. Once it gets there.
the Supreme, like, right, because otherwise it goes jurisdiction by jurisdiction. Just like, honestly, it's just like gay marriage. It went jurisdiction by jurisdiction by jurisdiction until the jurisdictions were in conflict, and then it went to the Supreme Court, and then there was a decision. That's the way it's going to work. And it's going to be a process. So this book is going to just kind of start the conversation.
And when is the book going to be available?
This year. We're on deadline.
And for those of you that are watching this, we're in 2020. Where can people find out? Is there a website for the book?
Go to beveg.com and you can see it. Vegan Publishers also is the publishing house.
And I'll be having the book as soon as it's out, so I'll let you know for my audience.
Yeah, so I think it's a thought-provoking book. I think it's kind of historical too.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I appreciate you so much for taking the time to do this, because I know you're just a little busy. So thank you very much. And, well, when we started this interview, everybody, I said Superwoman. And now you know why, and I'm sure you agree. This is the Raw Life Health Show. Raw Life. Brighten up your life. This is the Raw Life Health Show. Raw Life. Brighten up your life.